Hi, I'm Andrea Klim, and you are watching Turn to the Stars. And today is December 23rd, Tuesday, 2014. And the topic that I'm going to be focused on, or actually two topics, is the continuation of Jupiter's retrograde through the constellation of Leo, which you've heard me talking about over the course of the last couple weeks. And also I'm going to lead into talking about the Cancer full moon that's at its peak on January 4th and the energy leading up to that. And, last week I was talking about the new moon that occurred on Sunday, December 21st in Capricorn. And so I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into the show with... I just want to sort of set some ground here because there's so many times I hear from people saying that, oh, astrology, oh, I don't believe in that. And so I want to just kind of touch on this a little bit again because it's really not something that we believe in. It's something that we learn about, astrology, and it is a study of the movements and relative positions of the celestial bodies, the planets, interpreted as having an influence on human affairs and the natural world around us. And that's from Wikipedia. And as I said before, it is something we learn about, not something to believe in, because it's very, very real. It is a scientific study of the bodies that surround us here on Earth. And I'm going to kind of set a stage here for the rest of the show. For instance, let's think about our Earth home. It has a certain vibration, and we describe it as practical. This is reality to us, reliable, because here on Earth, it's something that we can touch, see, feel, and because we live here. So those are the words that we would just use to describe our Earth energy. And if we think about the moon, it is not here, but it is the closest body to us. And we describe it as changeable, sometimes unseen. It's a nurturer of growth. The energy is mothering because it's the closest body to us that inspires our growth. It affects the waters here on Earth and the water or emotions of us here on Earth. I'm sure you've heard that said before. Water, people who are very watery are very emotional. So those would be some words I would use to describe the moon. And the sun, it's not here, but it is a body that provides the light to us here on Earth. It's warm, can be hot, inspires the rise and the fall of each day. It's motivating and it inspires life. So now, just with those three bodies which influence us here on Earth, just like where you live in your home, your neighbors influence you, you influence them. So now that I've set that scene and you're grasping this scene, let's expand on this just a little bit further. And I have, I'm going to be talking about Jupiter's retrograde. And Jupiter is the planet that is said to be the great expander because its energy, it's the biggest planet in our solar system, large, big, and it seems boundaryless. So I have a picture I want to show you, and this is just another way of looking at Jupiter's retrograde, which it moved into the constellation of Leo, as you can see, back on July 16th of this year, and in the interim, we had a solar eclipse that occurred on October 23rd. And then we have Jupiter turning retrograde on December 8th, meaning that from our perspective here on Earth, this planet appears to be going in a different direction, which it will be until March, actually April of 2015. No, I'm sorry, that is correct. April of 2015. And we have a solar eclipse that occurs. It's actually April 8th, so I think that there's a mistake there on that date. So that's April 8th of 2015. And then there's this solar eclipse that we have on March 20th. But you see that little loop that appears on the, normally a path is straight ahead, but this planet takes a different, turns in this, appears to move in this different direction, giving us a different perspective on particular areas of our life. So, with this retrograde, we sort of pause the current chapter of our experience and we slowly wander backwards, as you saw in that picture, up till the moment Jupiter was entering into that retrograde zone, which was around September 12th, and we revisit our experiences from back then, realizing our life story and how it has been unfolding. With Jupiter's energy reversed, so to speak, the more idealistic and high-minded attributes of this planet take over. And Jupiter's energy is, as I said before, all about expansion, idealism, anything that's extravagant. And it can be that it gives us a sense of overconfidence. But what it does is it expands our consciousness. And when it's retrograde, it expands our inner consciousness. So the emphasis will be upon inner growth, inner awareness, achieved through embracing and understanding and processing the most meaningful experiences of the past 2 months. So ideally, this is a time for us to redefine, tweak, and improve our present by reevaluating what has been. So it'll be for about 4 months, your journey will be pulling you back from the outside world and taking you to go deep inside yourself on a search for understanding and enlightenment, relying on the wisdom of the higher mind, of your higher mind and your consciousness. And it's normal during Jupiter's retrograde for the outward creativity and outer development and outer progress of projects and plans and activities to slow down, because we're not so much in an outward motion anymore. So your personal philosophy, principles, and beliefs will be under a looking glass, sort of like under a microscope, under a spyglass for some time, forcing you to acknowledge whether or not you've succeeded in integrating all the things that you've been working on since around that time in September. So issues around further education, higher education, far travel, publishing, and truth telling, and how you've been active in these special areas will be present and present themselves in a very different way. So most importantly, you'll be examining the role you're playing in your story. And you'll be asked to reconsider. You'll be under this period of reconsidering these particular areas. And on February 3rd, there's going to be a full moon. And that full moon will be in Leo, and it'll be right beside Jupiter's, as it's retrograde in Leo. And it's going to totally illuminate Jupiter in Leo. And there's actually a website or a resource that I might recommend to you if you like to read about the cosmos, and it's www.earthsky.org, and there's an astronomer, Larry Sessions, who writes about the cosmic energies, and he does a really nice description of Jupiter's retrograde and from an astronomical standpoint what that means. So just coming back to Jupiter retrograde and the astrology influence, you might find that you ask yourself, am I being loyal to who I truly am or to the person that I'm intending to become? during this retrograde. Leo is a very loyal energy, a very proud energy, a very dignified energy. And so when it turns inwardly, it's not so much about outward expressions, but the inward. So we start thinking about ourselves inwardly. Am I being loyal to myself? Am I being honest with myself? If not, this is a very good time to come up with a plot twist. And people that have Sagittarius ruling their chart, or planets within 12 to 22 degrees range of any fixed sign or fire sign, will feel this retrograde the most in their life. And Leo, again, is a sign that has a stabilizing effect because it's fixed. And it uses consistent methods, brings spontaneity and dramatic excitement to whatever it touches. Its energy is more steady, and it inspires an ability to hang in there. It's steadfast. It's one of those energies you've heard me talk about in other shows that really hangs on. It's more of a dependable. You can depend on it staying fixed or set in its ways. And this can help us in the area to be patient as we enjoy playing with a more natural expression arising from reorientation and looking at maybe we need to consider where we're being, where we put our dedication. Jupiter and Leo should bring us confidence in life areas where we have Leo in your chart. So when you look at a birth chart, all the signs are going to show up in your birth chart. It's just wherever your planet's registered, depending on your time of birth. So wherever Leo is, that's where Jupiter's going to be taking you on that backwards journey. Jupiter in Leo can inspire a very confident type of response, but it also gives us that royal or nobility expressions in ways of expressing ourselves. So there was this American astrologer that I came across some information on, Grant Louie. And he said in his writing in Astrology for the Millions, Jupiter in Leo opens opportunities and a chance to exhibit our special virtues, our special abilities, our special talents, our special expressions, our originality. And he says this position refuses obscurity and will also go for that which gives more publicity. Leo likes to be noticed. It likes to be recognized. And while Jupiter is in Leo, it'll bring us to the stage and it'll inspire a need for approval from others for the traits that are important to us. Now, while Jupiter is retrograde, December 8th through April 8th, that's the time where we have this introspection, this inner look or recognition of what we really feel inside. So it's not so much about looking out in the world for that recognition. So Jupiter in Leo is typically most satisfied with the recognition of the effect it makes on others. So what's the effect that your expressions, how do you feel about how you express yourself? Great time to look at that. Well, Jupiter is retrograde in Leo. And Mark Edmund Jones, who's an American writer, screenwriter, and astrologer, said in his book, Astrology, How and Why It Works, he said, Jupiter in Leo indicates the development of a consciousness which is characteristically self-sufficient and sure in its response to ideas. So, we're talking about that outward response, but remember, we're taking a real examination during Jupiter in Leo of how we put that all together. And it is motivated, Leo is typically motivated by its own unimpeachable sincerity and holding to values, interested in the meaning of life, and requires chances to build up and dramatize some part of its own character. So during this year, we're going to have Jupiter in Leo. It usually stays in a sign for a whole year. We're going to learn a lot about Leonian things. Those who embrace the energy of Jupiter in Leo will find a steady growth of natural self-expression and playfulness, and many will feel a more childlike response is what happens. So Jupiter will also lead others who are stuck in non-productive patterns to embrace a stubborn or prideful mannerism, and may even cement unhealthy self-absorption and self-justifying values in those who don't want to grow. So during its stay in Leo, Jupiter, the expansive, it has this expansive principle. We're going to see around January that it forms a connection with Saturn, showing another major set of forks in the road in our destiny. By February, it makes another connection, an aspect of serendipity, a sudden discovery, which might be the realization quite by accident. It kind of that February period, like I talked about earlier, around February 3rd, is the time when the full moon illuminates it. So that, quite by accident, we become aware of something very special inside of us. And Jupiter is also going to trine Uranus while it's in this retrograde. And so that favors our own originality. It brings out that inner expression for us to become aware of. And, unique, unusual, pioneering expressions and creative facets of ourselves. So once again, it does, as you heard me talk about before, it goes direct in April of 2015. And at that time, it forms a connection to Pluto and Neptune. And that's, pretty much in the spring. And we can expect major developments during those times because it's going to connect with inner planets. And as it moves through any of those 7 hot zones of this configuration. And you want to keep an eye on the 3rd week of January, another very important time. And during the times Jupiter makes connections, it'll influence new directions, and we can find new forms of self-expression. And as you heard me talk about before, the full moon in Leo on February 3rd will be right beside Jupiter in Leo retrograde, highlighting and bringing your awareness in a very big way to areas that you're being recognized for amongst your peers. It's actually going to, because of its retrograde in Leo, since September of 2014, it's going to introduce us to the themes of March through May of 2015. So you want to sort of keep that in the back of your mind. And there's some other points that I want to point out about Jupiter's retrograde, and one of them being that the next thing I want to point out is the light that Leo brings, the expanded form of light and positivity that Jupiter brings to us in reminding us to keep our faith. And it is typically a very positive time when we have Jupiter moving through the constellation of Leo, because it's a masculine sign, so there's this positivity, and it really does expand on the attributes of reminding us how important our faith is. And I'm going to be talking about the full moon later in the show, and because of that, I want to just sort of remind you or take you on a little journey into what you might fine, very helpful while Jupiter is in the going retrograde in the constellation of Leo. And with that mindset, I want to share with you a little quote I found that reminds me about this, and it's by Edward Teller. And it says, "When you come to the end of all the light you know, and it's time to step into the darkness of the unknown, faith is knowing that one of two things shall happen. Either you'll be given something solid to stand on, or you'll be taught to fly." And that's by Edward Teller. And that is sort of what this next picture I'm going to show you, which is the full moon on February 3rd. And you can see that in the top right-hand corner of this chart. And I've lighted up the full moon that is occurring on February 3rd right beside the Jupiter retrograde in the constellation of Leo. And when I was in preparation for today's show, I thought, because this is sort of like a turning point when we have that full moon right next to Jupiter as it's retrograde in Leo, because it touches a very deep spot inside of us. This energy will be a full expression of our inner child or our inner creativity, which each and every one of us has. And what I'd like to ask you to do right now is, if you could, as you're listening to me talk and watching the show, close your eyes and take a minute to embrace the darkness and sort of wrap your arms around the darkness that has just taken over as a form of your sight. And I'm going to ask you to have faith in the unknown. Now open your mind's eye, not your eyes physically, but your mind's eye. Imagine an eye opening, and then you begin to see light again. And you see through the light of your guiding spirit rather than through your physical eyes. Ask to see your guiding light in whatever form that takes. It is here that your inner adventures begin, as Jupiter is retrograde in Leo. This light gives you undivided attention. It treats you very special. It provides you with a cloak of warmth. You can feel its playfulness as it pops from here to there in front of you, lighting up and guiding you back over all that you've been creating since September 12th of this year. And it may appear like a movie in your mind's eye. And this light begins to speak to you, encouraging you to be brave and lighthearted. It encourages you to feel through your heart. It flies about in front of your mind's eye, like the light of a huge flashlight. So it's popping and moving all around and drawing pictures of where you've been. And then I'd like to ask you to reach out and grab onto this light and pull it right to your heart. This symbolizes the inner working of a lighted journey. And I'd like to propose to you that now is the time to discover the inner workings of your individual expression and to ponder all that you've created in this time through your mind's eye. Now is the time to integrate the light of creativity you've expressed outwardly and create a place of acceptance for it inwardly. Once you've created this brightly lit place within your heart, you feel a sense of wholeness inside. And this is an exercise you can naturally experience as Jupiter continues on its retrograde back through the constellation of Leo, with a highlighted time, as you heard me talk about before, around February 3rd, as the light of the moon, nurturance, is right beside Jupiter retrograde in Leo. And for the last couple of minutes of today's show, I want to talk a little bit about the fullness of this Cancer full moon on January 4th that is going to inspire us to recollect how far we've come. And as you heard me say at the beginning of the show, the moon, which is the ruling body for the constellation of Cancer, is the sign that influences domesticity. And so we're going to be realizing what we need to cultivate in our lives through the light of that full moon on January 4th. And pretty much we're contemplating our evolution and our growth and considering where we find fulfillment. And I have a chart that shows that, actually that January 4th full moon. And no, that's the New Year chart.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. There it is. That's the full moon on January 4th. And as you can see, it looks like there's this big X right down the middle of that chart. And so it's electrifying that cardinal cross square, and the energy of it is going to be extremely dynamic on this full moon. Dynamic. It reminds us that as we walk to the edge of this time, we'll then take our first steps into the unknown. And that poem that you heard me say earlier is extremely active with this energy. And this full moon chart really paints a clear picture. And, so we find ourselves, where are we going to go now from here? It's been called by other astrologers a cosmic reset button, basically 2012 to 2015, where in this cosmic reset, meaning that we're being influenced to take a real deep look at where we're active. And there's a lot of pressure showing up with that full moon. We're experiencing pressure in so many directions. And so the questions we're asking ourselves as a whole, personally and as a whole, is how do we manage these obstacles in front of us? And so this full moon cardinal cross squared off formation, like you saw on the screen, asks us to consider carefully, very carefully, what our actions are, because whatever we do will affect others, and whatever they do will affect us. And it's so much about our actions, and others retaliating based on our actions, and us retaliating based on their actions. So what I do love about that chart, and I do need to say this, is because there's so much pressure. That's a very pressurized chart. What I like about it is that it reveals that compassion, kindness, caring, nurturing, and the cultivation of these qualities is available to be expressed. And you can see that in the chart by the blue line from that full moon at the top through the middle. There's a blue line that goes down to Chiron. And so those are the things that are really going to be able to be expressed, and that will really help us through this pressure. And the other thing I like about this chart is that Uranus is in a semi-sextile to Chiron. And so it offers the possibility of choosing a different approach than we have had in the past. So I want to say to everyone that even with all that we have got going on cosmically, I do want to wish everyone a very light-filled holiday season, and to nurture all those wonderful things and all those relationships that you have in your life, and wish you a very happy holiday. And I'll see you back here after the New Year. Happy New Year. Take good care. I'll see you then.